Welcome to this explainer. In the twilight of a truly legendary career, global football icon Neymar Jr. faced this incredibly grueling physical and mental mountain. Today, we're diving right into the unforgiving reality of elite sports injuries. We're going to focus specifically on the immense physiological hurdles he had to climb in his final years on the pitch, and really break down the mechanics of a recovery process that ultimately broke down itself. There's this absolutely heartbreaking symmetry to Neymar's international retirement. Picture this. July 2026, after a really painful 2-1 defeat to Norway that knocked Brazil out of the World Cup, Neymar just breaks down in tears, covering his face with his jersey. And the stadium where this final, emotional whistle blew, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. Now, astoundingly, that is the exact same venue where he made his debut for the Brazilian national team 16 years earlier, way back in August 2010. It's just a poetic, yet incredibly painful bookend to a legendary career. So to really understand that emotional exit and why he was so limited in that final tournament, we have to forensically trace his tragic final years. Because, look, his struggles didn't just start in 2026. The real catalyst? That happened in October 2023 during a World Cup qualifier against Uruguay, where he suffered a devastating ACL and meniscus tear. Then, just a year later, in October 2024, his highly anticipated club return was cut incredibly short by a secondary failure, a severe hamstring tear. That compounding physical trauma right there, that paved the direct path to his ultimate World Cup retirement. All right, to unpack all of this, we're going to map out our forensic case study. We'll start with the anatomy of an ACL tear, look at the mechanics of rehab, figure out why the comeback failed, and finally, take away some lessons for every athlete. So, Part 1. The anatomy of an ACL tear, focusing on the biological mechanics. I want you to think of the human knee like a high-tension hinge. The anterior cruciate ligament, or the ACL, is essentially this crucial internal cable linking your femur, your thigh bone, to your tibia, the shin bone. It is almost entirely responsible for keeping that hinge from collapsing during those sudden pivots, the jumps, and the rapid direction changes that absolutely define elite football. When this ligament is compromised, the knee just fundamentally loses its structural integrity. And when that ligament tears from a sudden twist or a really awkward landing, which is exactly what Neymar experienced against Uruguay, it triggers this catastrophic immediate chain reaction. Athletes almost always report this distinct, highly audible popping sensation, which is usually followed by severe, blinding pain and really rapid joint swelling. The knee simply gives way. It makes it literally impossible to bear any weight. It's just a sudden, highly traumatic biological failure. Moving on to Part 2, the mechanics of rehab, or what we'll call the grueling protocol. Now, fixing an ACL isn't just a simple repair. Because the surgeon is inserting a completely new ligament, your body actually has to organically fuse with it over many, many agonizing months. You see, it's not like a broken bone that just needs a cast to knit back together. The new ACL graft must vascularize in a process called ligamentization. Basically, the dead tissue literally has to come back to life, it has to develop a fresh blood supply, and completely merge mechanically with the surrounding leg tissue. This deep biological reality is exactly why the recovery clock takes so incredibly long. Rebuilding that knee requires a very strict mechanical progression. Step 1 is simply recovering basic joint mobility through some really intense physiotherapy. Then comes the grueling strength training to wake all the surrounding muscles back up. Step 3 forces the athlete to relearn balance and stability, which is essentially retraining the brain to trust the knee joint again. And finally, Step 4 introduces progressive running and sport-specific drills. It's a massive, totally systematic overhaul of the entire leg's mechanical function. This brings us to Part 3, why the comeback failed, the medical autopsy. Now, despite roughly a year of world-class rehabilitation, Neymar actually suffered a severe hamstring tear after just 29 minutes on the pitch. Yeah, you heard that right. This happened during a Champions League match for his club, Al Hilal, against Esteghlal FC in October 2024. Just 29 minutes of competitive play, and his body failed him all over again, sidelining him for another 6 weeks. It's a staggering number, right? And it really begs the question, what exactly went wrong? Well, when we compare a rushed return against an ideal protocol, the differences are stark. A rushed comeback relies merely on getting medical clearance. It skips deep neuromuscular retraining, that's the vital process where the brain and body sync up under game speed pressure, and it totally ignores strict load management limits. An ideal comeback, however, that demands total muscle symmetry. It ensures 100% mental confidence to prevent any movement hesitation, and it enforces incredibly strict caps on the minutes played to protect those recently healed tissues from maximum demand. The truth is, knee surgery actually weakens the entire leg. We're talking the quads, the glutes, the calves, all of it. If those aren't perfectly symmetrical upon return, a really dangerous imbalance occurs. In Neymar's case, this imbalance likely forced his hamstrings to overcompensate and absorb massive, unnatural amounts of force. Combine that physical imbalance with a very normal psychological fear of re-injury, which inherently causes subtle mechanical hesitation, and you have a perfect recipe for the exact type of muscular strain he suffered. Let's step back for part 4, lessons for every athlete and the universal application. There's a great quote from a sports physiotherapist that hits the nail on the head. The biggest trap is thinking, he's cleared, so he's good to go. And wow, does that serve as a powerful warning. Returning to a sport, whether you're a weekend warrior or a global icon, must be an ultra-gradual process. It is absolutely not a light switch you can just flip back on. Healing the specific injury is really only half the battle, right? Retraining the entire musculoskeletal system and the mind is the true hurdle. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this. If an athlete with access to the absolute best medical care, the best physiotherapists, and the best trainers on the planet fell victim to the cascading failures of a rushed recovery, well, are we pushing our own bodies too fast? How often do we underestimate the timeline of our own physical recovery? It's definitely something to think about the next time you or someone you know is a little too eager to rush back onto the field. Thanks for tuning in to explore the mechanics behind Neymar's ACL recovery, and I hope this gives you a completely new perspective on the intricate reality of sports rehabilitation.